improving. And that said that 3 years ago I could not even teach an online course in Micronesia. When I was here this time, we wanted to make a film. Someone mentioned about being successful in online courses. So we created a brief little film ourselves on online student advising. And we had a student stationed in Fiji, we had the instructor in the United States, and we had the academic advisor in Micronesia. We used Skype, and between the three of us, we developed a video conference, three-way simultaneous video conference, and it worked perfectly. Not a problem whatsoever. This is how the technology is improving so quickly. Now, before I go on, let me pose one more question. How fast has online learning grown at your institution since 2007?
Okay, 5 more seconds to answer the poll.
Okay.
Okay, 58% voted, and 71% said moderately, and 29% says very fast.
Mm-hmm. And you can be sure that that's going to get faster, and very much of it driven by the economics. San Diego State University has become the Pacific shark. It is out there trying to drum up business from everybody. It is stealing might be a strong term. It is competing for community college students, for undergraduate students from the University of Guam, and for graduate students. It's going from 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees, masters, doctorates in education. Why is it doing that? Because it's a California State University, I believe, and they're desperate for funding to keep themselves going. The same thing is going to be true in other places. When we talk about places like the Pacific, why do we need online education in the first place? As I said, it's only 1% of the world's population, so it's not a big deal in terms of market, but it has an enormous need for education. They've had public universities there with face-to-face classrooms and campuses, and after 20 years of that going on there, plus correspondence courses, 50% of the faculty, high school teachers in Micronesia and Marshall Islands have no more than a high school diploma. They simply cannot train the people the way they need to by face-to-face training. The same thing is true in Vanuatu and PMG. The other thing is that you can't maintain the buildings, the infrastructure. It has to become, the only way to do it is by online. Let's talk about Asia. Asia's a little different. Asia contains 60% of the world's population. If we eliminate Europe from the equation, Asia contains 67% of the world population. And I'll talk a little bit later about why we eliminate Europe. But if we do that, then these are going to be importers and exporters of education. China expected to be a big player. Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei, Singapore, Hong Kong, There's a whole new competition developing. The other thing that we want to remember at this stage is that 95% of the world population is outside the United States. So that even if the U.S. wanted to deliver all of this training, they can't. The market is simply too big. So the market now is going to be divided by the rest of the world's competitors. Africa right now, as you probably know, is struggling with the technology, but it's not separated by islands, and so these are easily fixable problems, and you'll see their technology, I think, improve very dramatically. South Africa is already doing that, and they're 17% of the world's population. Okay. Now, I said, let's leave Europe out. I showed you the castle before. Once when I went to Europe, I looked at an old church, and I said, oh, this is an old church. And the German looked at me and said, they're all old churches. The European educational system goes back, 1,000 years. And so, therefore, they teach in much the same way. And they teach a master, an instructor, and the students listen, and it's teacher-centered. That is not conducive to online learning. And therefore, online learning is very slow in Europe outside of Britain. Whether they can make the change or not, that will be interesting to see, and how long it will take them to do it. In the meantime, the market will be open to other people. So, what do we know now? The market is no longer Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, South America. The market is wide open, it's global. People need money, there are new competitors, and we must do this to be able to compete. Questions?
Okay, no questions so far, but let's wait. Okay, one question is coming. In a global market, how do you find a niche?
Wow, that's not an easy question. That really will depend upon partially upon the next statement about accreditation agencies. You'll have to find, it will need partnerships, it will need acceptance by the different countries and by business, and it will need to be accredited. And the accreditation is, I think, any American university will tell you, the increasing stumbling block they're facing in distance learning. So I would say probably my recommendation would be in finding a niche is to find a partner. And the reason you find a partner is this. If I want to go into Australia and start offering online courses, and I'm Australian universities and the Australian government, I might not be able to keep you out, but I can sure make it difficult for my students to get any money to pay your tuition. If you partner, say, with Australian National University, now everything changes. Now you're both partners, and now the degree can be offered through one or the other or both, and now you have a niche. And so that's what I think I would recommend at this point. And we'll talk a little bit later, though, these partnerships they do not come without risk also. If you're going to go online, you're going to need money. And Bill Pepsella from University of Phoenix, they put 50% of their income back into marketing, and then you better believe the rest of it goes into dividends and infrastructure to keep it up. So you got to make sure when you do this that you have the excuse me, the infrastructure and the income to develop that, and once you do that, then you can find new markets. The advantage for you is going to be this kind of learning will be more economical. Partnerships will give you additional prestige, and really, I'm talking business, but the real bottom line of all of this is that your universities now are giving assistance to people and nations, and now you're actually able to go outside your nation and become a global provider of learning, and that's really what education is all about. Any questions?
Yes, there is a question here, Bob. A broader classification of the study or nature of courses or directions.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Okay, it seems that I cannot see the first part, but that's the question I can see on the GoToWebinar. The question is a broader classification of the study or nature of courses or the directions.
I'm not sure what it means. Let me try to address it. It used to be you had two options in teaching. You had face-to-face or online. Then a few years ago they made it computer assisted so that you teach mostly online, but you could then have learning management system where you put materials on it, and students that would be part of your course. Now a variation is to put most of your courses, use most of your discussion online, but have face-to-face sessions, and that combination is much less threatening for students, particularly students who are in these developing countries. I think in the developed countries, you've got people like, professional people. They do just fine in the online courses.
Yeah, okay. There is one more question. How do you get money from poor countries that desperately need education?
In in Micronesia, if you want to use electricity, you go to the store and you buy a card, much like you buy, and same thing for a cell phone, and then you put it in, and when you run out of it, your card runs out, you put more electricity in. In any of these developing countries, you want the money up front. You don't. In some countries, the idea of a loan means I don't ever have to give it back. And so that's the difference in culture and approach.